Today, we're doing support session 3. I'm Tao, and I'm going to be a facilitator.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Stephanie Duran.
Hi, Rebecca Landry.
Hi, Erica Arredondo. So we'll just start with the first question, which is, what is feminist methodology and why is it important? So we'll just go around the table and everyone give an input of what they think or what it meant to them.
Okay. So what is feminist methodology? Why is it important? Feminist methodology is a way of conducting scientific research and generating theories in a way that is explicitly grounded in a feminist framework. And also, I feel like it's also grounded in social constructionism. And when I say feminist framework, I mean that feminist methodology is rooted in political positioning that is looking to make changes in how women and also other marginalized groups are understood on various social levels. Examples, their needs, desires, priorities, values, as well as the spaces they hold within society. This is extremely important given how historically women and people of color have been either grossly underrepresented in research or completely left out altogether. And this exclusion has caused a lot of misconceptions and stigmatizing on what is worse is that it was done through scientific means and therefore validated under the scientific label. So these misconceptions and falsehoods were seen as both valid and factual.
Are we all answering the same question?
We can answer, or you can build off of, build or add or anything.
Okay, great. Yeah. Mine kind of blends though into the next piece about the androcentric one. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So awesome. Thank you for that. That was really helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So based also on why it's important too, because it's in contrast to the androcentric, which is like the male-dominated how things were from a male, particularly white male perspective. And so, like Erica mentioned, women and people of color were like completely isolated from that. And so, in contrast, it gives that perspective, and that's why it's so important. Because specifically, in relation to like emotions, for example. Stereotypically white men are supposed to be seen, like the discourses, they're supposed to be seen as like strong and independent and powerful. And so anything outside of that standard deviation of like what should be in terms of like emoting feelings is considered to be like way off base. So if a woman were to be emoting or anyone else were to be emoting, it would be like considered not normal. So this feminist methodology is extremely important because it gives a normal. It gives a context in which to study from an alternative perspective.
Looking to understand what these abnormalities are and explain.
Right.
And also, I think like what I saw that was really great was it diversity, not only because it's not talking like, it also talks about like the difference in white women with women of color, right?
Right.
So talking about the differences even within the gender, because sometimes there would be research and you would see research, oh yeah, women, but it would be generalized into women are all the same.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So like also challenging that, because that's a word they use actually, challenging.
Yeah. Right, yeah, because women of color were underrepresented in that. And so like the scale was topped out at like this white woman experience, so this was their experience.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I think it also makes me question, like when I read it, I kind of thought of it more as like an ideology too, not just based on research, but just kind of the opposite of it's almost like androcentric is male focused, but I also saw it as feminism as a way of just like social constructionism is like questioning the assumptions, just like whatever the norm is, which is in this case happens to be androcentric, but it could have been anything else. The way feminists came in and looked at it was, you're doing this in a very specific way, and maybe we should look at other things or what's not being addressed in that. So like I guess to me it could apply to anything, not just women, or just being able to look at something in a totally different way and making sure to include everybody.
Right. Yeah. For me, it made me like think about like Maggie was saying, just like open our minds to this. But I was able to relate it to multiculturalism too.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
hey, we need diversity, right? Not only female, but we need to like see the different groups within females, children, adults, like everything, and then realize that there's differences between everyone, even if there's the same. Let's say they're all Hispanic, it doesn't mean they're having the same experience.
Right.
So it made me realize, oh, like maybe this is something we need to look at. That even though we see this certain categories, it doesn't mean it's gonna be the same.
Right.
Still,
Do they have any other final thoughts?
well, I like the questions about like sorry, was it Elizabeth Cole? Who is included within this category? That what role does inequality play? And the only one I was having an issue with understanding was where the similarities. But when like looking into research, I think thinking about it, at least who is included within this category, that's where it opens to the possibilities of being more inclusive or being diverse.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like those questions and thinking, okay, this is something that is easy to apply, to think, and try to be less biased, which I think as a researcher is hard to not be biased.
Right.
So I think, at least I always make the assumption, I'm not sure if it's okay or not, but I always make the assumption that none of the research that is out there can be applied to everyone at all, because everyone's different, right? So so I always think like, okay, so yeah, pretty much, even though it says that for the majority, this is how it works, we can't really say, oh, this is gonna work for you, because for, let's say, white 30-age male, this usually works, so it should work for you. And I just got lost in but yeah, but just made me realize that too, that those questions were really good, and I thought of like using them too with our proposal.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
very nice. Likewise, and then you can link to is that, like, how do we think that these feminist ideas and methodology would fit into your proposal?
Yeah, okay, so for me, I thought, okay, so not necessarily feminist, just because my proposal is about elementary school, and I think I want to be inclusive and I want to be diverse, so I want like everyone's, obviously I can't get everyone's experience in there, but I want like experiences from different people, so obviously teachers, either male, female, students, if I can get some too, administration. So I want to try to be diverse and see it from like the different perspectives in elementary grade levels. So, and was it? I think I don't know if I had a little bit of high school in there or middle school. Not sure yet, but so pretty much that was it. Like it was thinking more like, okay, more the diverse part of it, but not really feminist, but at the same time it's questioning, it's challenging the norm, the power in the way we usually do research. So it did open up my mind to, okay, I really need to make sure that, hey, I'm approaching diversity, I'm like questioning, I'm challenging, like this is not like only that I'm at least making those differences that are in there, or similarities that should be in there as well. So it made me realize that I need to really change my wording into who is going to be targeted, who's the like audience, who's going to be targeted in this research. So that's a way it could kind of like help me think about it. So. What?
Okay. Cool. So I'm kind of positioned in a feminist approach. I'm sampling a group of women and asking about their experiences with power in their familial and cultural dynamics. So kind of in terms of like that sampling thing, I'm like in terms of what role does inequality play, that's basically one of my main questions in searching for it is like the category memberships mark groups with unequal access to power. Like my interest is of a group of people with unequal access to power based off of my positionality and where I've come from there. So, however, in terms of wording my questions, I'm a little bit more mindful now in terms, like Stephanie mentioned, of the specific wording, because I just want to make sure that even though I am kind of addressing, like, in theory, a potentially marginalized group of people, I'm just seeing it as women, which can be kind of like could have the potential for harm, not necessarily, and I'm sampling women across different religious backgrounds. So there's a huge, like there are differences between women of my faith and women of another faith. And so kind of I'm keeping in mind to not further isolate any potential group by the wording of my research questions. Just like keeping in mind that too.
Right.
That's it.
I thought of something while you're talking also, like Stephanie, is just the way we're questioning things with feminism is just looking at who's maybe not represented. Like with you, Stephanie, maybe even looking at, because I am looking at it in the elementary setting, but like what about kids who don't go to school but are in the same age group? Like who don't have the school experience. Yeah, like the typical school experience. Even like preschool right before you go into an actual elementary school, or like sixth grade. I don't know what the school system maybe it was like, but like sixth grade, like right after you leave, like how has that impacted them, or like, you know, something like that.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And I think, I mean, for mine it's like that too, just like questioning everything, but like for yours, it could be like women who may be in positions of power in faith-based communities, because that's, while they seem to have power, they may not actually have power. But I know you're like women, right now you're talking more general, which allows for
Yeah, like there's more room to explore.
Yeah,
Definitely. Yeah. I feel like Maya is already incorporating a feminist intersectional lens, just because I'm specifically like trying to look at how categories of gender and ethnicity and inequality and constructive negative self-concepts all like intersect. So yeah, as far as my questions go, I feel like they are like pretty, I guess, inclusive to like various groups. So like I'm wanting to like explore, you know, minority women and how they construct STEM fields, being in the STEM fields and their studentness for it. And then would ethnic groups allow people, especially men, to explore their sexuality? Do gender and ethnicity intersect in the decision-making by immigrants seeking asylum? And how does race and gender groups experience domestic violence? Like how do they conceptualize the phenomenon? So I feel like in that aspect, like I do have that lens. I just feel like what I need to do is kind of bring that into when I do my lit review and kind of pull, I think, material that is going to be more in that range.
And supports it.
And supports it, yeah, because I feel like when I did my lit review, I didn't really know where I was going. Like I knew I had this concept and I wanted that intersectionality in there, but I didn't really know, and it wasn't until we started working on our proposal, the break before this one, that I started really like kind of going all over the place with it and realizing, okay, my lit review is gonna help to be more supportive.
I love that you thought of intersectionality without even like us going through it and really knowing what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about you, like, while I was doing the readings, I was like, oh, Eric is already doing that.
Yeah, it's because, like, I constantly look at things, and I'm like, well, this plays into this, and this plays into this, and a lot of my friends are like, no, it doesn't, and I'm like, it does. Just because you don't see it, like, doesn't mean that these things aren't affected, because how could it not? Like, society is built up of all these discourses. how are they not being affected, especially by something like colonialism? How is that not seeped into everything, including the way we internalize it?
Right.
So yeah, I was like super excited.
And also if everything is, sorry. And also if everything is socially constructed.
Yeah.
Therefore.
Right, you're right.
right. Yeah, I tell my friends that, and they're like, well, you just can't win an argument with that then. And I'm like, no one's trying to win an argument here. Right? It's just things are not as set as you think that they are.
Yeah.
And I tend to have this debate with my friends who happen to be white and male. And I'm like, I get that you think that you aren't as privileged as you think that you are, because, you know, sure, you weren't like super rich or anything, but you don't know what it's like to not be, right? And to be somebody who is especially a double minority. Yeah. You don't know that. And these discourses have been constructed from people like you, or people like you, right? And you're internalizing this too. You're being oppressed by these very same things that put you at the top, but even, you know, these discourses that people aren't questioning, and all of this intersectionality, like, people don't realize that, you know, when you speak out against them, you're not saying like, so you're not saying that you're against the person who just happens to be white. You're like, no, this is oppressing you too. And like, understanding this, you can see how this is playing out in your life. Right? But unfortunately, I feel like this conversation is
Yeah. I have kind of like a related to that, like a non sequitur-ish question for you all, if that's okay. Like, so mentioning those interactions, I'm also reminded of, Cal made a comment a while ago that has stuck with me throughout like the past couple of weeks about like, it was for another course, but it's totally relevant right now. I'm sorry, I'm putting you on the spot, but you made a comment like, at what point is, what was it, does superiority end in interactions, right? Can you, is that on base of what you said?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
how, I guess how colonialism and even just
imperialism.
Yeah, imperialism. I can't think of it. Anyways, that's all based on superiority. Like, someone came into somewhere and thinks that they're more superior than them, but like, at the point you stop imperialism and colonialism and all of that just stops happening. To me, when there's no superiority, you're always going to be superior to someone. Like, no matter if you try, when you go out to meet somebody, someone is going to feel more superior in that conversation. Or even with a child, like, you're more superior.
Right.
There's, you could be more superior than a child, like a level of hierarchy. Like, I'm an Asian and I was raised to respect my elders. No matter what, they're always going to be above me, more superior than I am.
And that also comes along with knowledge, right? Like, because knowledge gives power, power gives priority. Like, yeah, it's just, it keeps me like thinking in there, like knowledge, because knowledge.
Yeah.
Kind of pretty much is the base.
Yeah, just like, when does the superiority stop existing now? That's something that's been like, and like, I'm thinking specifically in that instance when you're having this conversation with your white male person who's also affected by the system, but is privileged by this system.
And just feels that like, I'm pointing fingers, I'm like, no,
like,
I'm doing this, but like, it's around all of us.
Right. Like, when will that conversation, like, I don't know. It's just like, what changes? It just seems kind of like a Sisyphusian, like, going uphill with this boulder kind of a thing, when nothing seems not to go downhill in this, but like, like if it might not change, like, we're all, I feel extremely fortunate and privileged to be in a group of like-minded, progressive fellow thinkers here who are recognizing power imbalances and challenging them as they see fit. It's like, the world, when does that end? Like, at what point?
Right.
I don't know.
It always makes me wonder too, like, a lot of the readings that we get are based on American researchers, and like, some of the texts that we read call out specifically like bits of what it's like in America, this is the history that's happened in the US. But it makes me wonder what other countries, like, how they view it, and if it's as big of a problem as it is here. Like, as much as I traveled, but you don't get a sense of that unless you live there and you communicate with other people in other places, and to see to live there and to see what it's like. Do they differentiate between each other?
I'm wondering if we would be very similar to other places that have been colonialized, because I feel like Britain colonized like a lot of countries, and I'm wondering if they have as much of a divide as we do, because I feel like America's very divided in that.
So rich. It's so rich. Scrambles my brain a little.
In reading all of this too, like I had a hard time because like my proposal is totally based in androcentric atmosphere, and even my assumption of corporations, like to assume that corporate America is like tired and overworked and unhappy, like that's a huge assumption that we make here based on what, I don't know. I don't even know who tells us that. Like who's told
I think there's like research about certain
and then
points like
just
that.
like what you said too, is that like the research doesn't apply to everybody. Like you can look at the research and say, like, who does this actually apply to? Like how many female managers have you talked to? How many like are there any full, like all women corporations? Because I'm sure there are lots of all male corporations.
Right.
And there was also somewhere I read how even like you'll do certain things in the lab, right? But you also have to consider the fact that, are you getting paid for that research? Is that person going for free? How nicely are they actually gonna like, let's say they do a survey, right? A survey, you answer it depending on how you're feeling that day, right?
Yeah.
And so, and not always. Well, yeah, pretty much. And so you can just, if you're not feeling like doing it that day, you're just gonna like click, click, click. I've done that, honestly.
Yeah.
I've done that. And if you're getting paid for it, you might care a little bit more. You might not, depending on how your marketing style is like conscious to you. For me, it doesn't, so I'll still click, 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 and I don't care. I'm like, I'm getting money for free. Okay, I'm sorry, but I barely have time to think for my own stuff, right? So like, and that's the thing. Like, you can't really put a value into that and think, oh yeah, this is gonna be real. This is like honest answers. You know, like it makes you think. And the thing is, I like research. But it's funny because I contradict myself. I love research. I like doing it and learning. I like the learning of it, but I don't agree with most of it. Because definitely I feel like it's not applicable to everyone. So I like case studies though, where it's like one case, one person, when it's personal, because then it's like, oh, at least this is, I know for this person this is working.
Right.
I learned this about this person. But
I feel like case studies are more personal.
Exactly, but I won't be able to apply it to someone else. This is just how this person is. So I love that part of research, the case studies. But like trying to apply it to someone else, you might find some tools useful, which is I think what research is trying to do, right? But yeah, it's just sorry. It just research for me calls out, and I have to talk.
Oh, that's yeah.
I think you bring like a very valid point too, is that like with case studies, I don't have very much experience in research, and just like noting that case studies, like this is one example, but it doesn't, sometimes they make assumptions at the end to kind of collect that data, but usually they like make a note saying, this is the one example. You don't, like, you can't necessarily generalize it to everybody. But then at the same time, like, it made me wonder what, like, is there ever going to be research that can apply to everybody? You know, like, I don't know if that's even.
I feel like cool. That would be a tall order. Just because we all have had, I mean, there's a lot of similarities to us, but there's a lot of differences even in the way that we like construct our own reality.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, pretty much that, because we all have different we all have different environments. I don't think that's ever gonna be a possibility where our environment can be the same.
Right, and our nature and nurtures.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking like even in a qualitative like interview style thing, the questions are still like the researcher's questions.
Right.
Yeah.
like even if you are given like a a subject is given an opportunity to speak freely, like it's framed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. Oh no, I was just gonna say that's what I think is pretty cool about the whole feminist methodology is that it brings that curiosity to research, and that it's that serious like curiousness that tries to get into everyone's experience, as opposed to just just talking to like a certain group and then just applying it to everybody. I think that's like what disrupts the power dynamic between the researchers and the participants.
Yeah. And I'm reminded, like, even in our, sorry to keep bringing in other class stuff, but even in our, like, it's all so related.
Yeah.
In our in-person, like, when we're learning counseling methodologies too, like, even how we're being taught, it's so rooted in feminism. Like, I'm just learning, like, even how we're being taught to, like, form questions and to, like, everything. So that we're being taught is to eliminate that power dynamic.
Right.
Just finding it, like, all coming together. Yeah, it's nice. It's like, oh. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if we talked too much about this, but like, well, I think I kind of did about shaping the research questions. I know those were hard to like figure. For me, those were really hard to figure out. But like, I was thinking like, let me see my notes. But like even changing those questions a little bit harder than I know I edited from where I originally had after the comments, but then rethinking them as well too, like making sure they're more diverse, even though like I think it's already kind of diverse, if I remember correctly, but adding a little bit more of that diversity in them. So I was thinking like rethinking my research questions.
And I feel like if you think it, especially after these readings, then like do it.
Yeah, I think I consider changing a few things. Because like I said, it's not gonna be maybe that complete feminist lens, but there's a few things that made me think about like, oh, this need to change because we need a more diverse lens as well. So yeah.
I think that's
a
a
note
good idea.
there.
Yeah.
That's something that I definitely need to work on. Like feedback I got were my questions were kind of asking different things in different directions, and then to figure out how I can add like an intersectionality, because my original proposal was based off of like taking one group in a company and deciding, but then thinking after reading this feminist of like, which group do I pick? Like, how do you pick a group that like a group or department in a company? And like the ratio of like male to female or like older to younger people, like how do you pick a diverse group? Like, stereotypically, there are certain people that go into certain fields, and so that subset of people be very similar versus like taking groups from different departments. But at the same time, I mean, with restorative justice, those people aren't going to come in contact with each other as often, and there won't be such conflict. Right? And you choose like random people from different parts of the company. They may never have seen each other before.
Right. I can still see though it as a maintenance type thing though too, because the restorative practices don't necessarily need to happen once there's conflict.
Yeah.
You can do it as like a standard setting kind of thing. So I think if you want to bring in different departments, that can definitely be relevant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that made me rethink too, like you saying, not always being used when there's conflict. Because my angle is, because usually it's used when there's conflict. Well, sorry, I was just rethinking.
Yeah.
I'm thinking a lot.
You can use the community building style, and that's
That's
to build the
relationship.
relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that would be more beneficial than, like, once a year team building, like, that no one really wants to go to. I feel like this is like rooted in more seriousness.
Like everyday stuff that you could
Right.
Right, yeah.
Looks like we're
out of time.
Okay.
awesome. Thank you guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. I think it doesn't belong.